Hi everyone, my name is Glynis and I discovered this amazing course on Coursera by Dr. Barbara Oakley called Learning How to Learn. I was fascinated because as a Toastmaster, one of my really weak points is memorizing and eye contact. Because if you do not memorize, you will not have the right eye contact. So, this course has been unlike any other course that I've taken so far. It's taught me so many things, some of which I'm going to be sharing in this video. Now, I learned that there are two types of thinking: focused thinking and diffuse thinking. Now, focused thinking is when you look at a material that you need to study, for example, a speech, and you're reading it, you're focused, your mind is completely absorbed. But you know what? You cannot constantly be in the focused mode because that'll cause a lot of anxiety. It'll cause just one track mind. You need to give yourself a break. So, for that, you need to do something for 25 minutes and then have a timer like a Pomodoro. It's called a Pomodoro timer and set it for 25 minutes. Now, after those 25 minutes are up, the timer goes off and you get into a diffused mode of thinking. What's a diffused mode? It means that you perhaps just leave your studies or leave your speech memorization and just go for a walk, take a little break, maybe just hang out with your favorite drink, and then come back again to that focused mode. So, that is very important. The second thing that I learned was chunking. Now, I thought chunking was something that is really big and fat, right? But chunking is actually making pieces of information fit like a jigsaw puzzle. So, for example, if you look at a big speech, just say it's a keynote speech of 15 minutes, what you do is you break it down into chunks, group bits of that speech or that material together so that it's familiar. For example, if you're memorizing a list of numbers, perhaps make it into a phone number style format for it to memorize it, like memorizing a credit card, for example. But coming back to the speech, you club related pieces of information together and you learn that, you memorize that together to form chunks. And then you're creating a ribbon or a chunk which is familiar pieces of information together so that you're chunking it together and memorizing uh, bits of information that relate to one another, chunking. If we don't use methods like this, we can sometimes get into illusions of competence. For example, we may highlight things on your speech or on your book when you're reading, and because you have so many highlights, you think you're learning, but actually you're not. It's just giving you an illusion. And so we have to be very careful. One of the things that I learned is using flashcards for retrieval because you can study and you can learn, but how can you then recall or retrieve? So, one of the resources that was shared was the I Do Recall. There's an app called I Do Recall which uses flashcards. And so you download the app and you can actually make your own flashcards that you can use then for retrieval practice. How great is that? Also using metaphors. I use metaphors a lot when I speak. For example, if I'm speaking on walking, the benefits of walking, which I love to do, I could perhaps use PACE, PACE, P to talk about physical exercise, A to talk about action, C to talk about perhaps how it changes you, how walking changes you, and E is the energy it gives you. So PACE, using acronyms, using metaphors. Actually, generative AI can actually help you with these metaphors because it can help you generate metaphors that will help you to then associate that particular idea with what you're trying to learn. So use AI to generate fun metaphors. Try it today, ask it to create a metaphor for your favorite hobby, and let's see how what it does. The next thing I learned was about repetition. When we're trying to repeat something constantly, you do not need to repeat something constantly. What you can do is deliberate practice. So what deliberate practice does is that you memorize things for a certain time and then you interleave. Interleave is you leave that you go and do something else, and again you come back to that, uh, you know, repetition. So that's another important thing. In memory, what I learned in memory, of course, we have short term memory and long term memory, and nowadays memory is so important because of diseases like Alzheimer's, etc. So, what I learned about memory, the most important thing is the memory palace. Have you heard about memory palace? It is associating, for example, in a familiar place like your house, you know where the living room is, the bedroom, the other room, and so memorizing so that you have parts of your speech in different places. It's called memory palace. And I've been using that a lot to memorize scripture recently, breaking it down and putting it in certain parts of my house so that I can get better at memorizing. So, in summary, I learned a lot from this course. But how do you get started? It can be all too overwhelming. And a lot of students and youth nowadays are suffering from anxiety because they cannot memorize things or they cannot learn effectively. So don't worry, focus on the process, not on the product. For example, when you're baking a cake, don't worry about how your cake is going to turn out. Focus on the process of the different parts of making the cake instead of the final product. That'll help ease the tension. And the second thing is create a daily list. So before you go to bed, try and think, okay, these are the things that I'm going to do tomorrow, and write it down so that the next day you're not overwhelmed by things falling through the cracks. In summary, this course has really helped me. It's a phenomenal course, and I'm going to really take all of the lessons I've learned in order to get better at memorization, increase my public speaking skills, and really also enhanced eye contact. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Thank you for watching.